time to go back to school. And parents, I know you know that feeling when you're ready for the kids to go back to school and they need a sense of routine again. But what's it going to look like this year? For a lot of kids, going back to school has a little bit of fear involved in it because it was so different in the last year and a half. So today I'm talking to a school psychologist. Kids come to her office day in and day out. It's a safe place for them. Dr. Angie Wall has been a school psychologist and psychotherapist for over 25 years. In fact, she received a master's degree in child development and counseling and a doctorate in school psychology. I want you to listen in today as we talk about what kids are going through, what's going on in their minds, how can we help encourage them and ease their fears, and hopefully model and teach some resiliency. Dr. Wall, thank you for taking the time today. I have appreciated your expertise over the years, and it seems like more than ever, we are worried about our kids. And I know that your practice and everything you do is so important right now for teenagers and younger people.
Yeah, this has been we're going on almost a year and a half, 2 years now. It's been incredibly difficult. Not only are kids struggling, but their parents are struggling as well. And if truth be told, I really think that a lot of us have actually gone through some trauma that some people are more prepared to deal with than others. And our little ones and our teenagers have been faced with this huge pandemic, which is actually a really traumatic experience. And younger people just aren't as well equipped as we as adults are to deal with it.
You know, that's what I was thinking when I was preparing for this interview was it is hard on us. And yet kids are still trying to figure out who they are and what they want to be. And they're dealing with friends and grades and hormones. And, adults at least most of us, we can push ourselves through it. And I know that that's easier said than done. But what are the issues that you are seeing most with young people today?
The issues that I'm seeing, well, prior to the pandemic, anxiety was a huge epidemic amongst our young people. I have never in my almost 30 years of practice have seen so much anxiety amongst our young people, starting as early as grade school. I'm seeing more and more kids that are identifying as I'm anxious in grade school. So that was already kind of a thing that we were dealing with and, working with these kids on. And now with the pandemic, their anxiety and fear has completely gone through the roof.
Can I ask you about anxiety from a professional standpoint? Is anxiety something that runs in families? Do we have anxiety? Are we born with the tendency to have anxiety? Or is this something that anybody can situationally have?
I think that that's a great question. I think that kids are born with a certain temperament. And some kids, or parent listening, can verify this, especially if you have more than one kid. You can see that each kid is born with a different temperament. And some kids are born just naturally a little bit more anxious than other kids. So I think some kids are kind of predisposed to be a little bit more anxious. But I also think that a lot of times anxious kids have very anxious parents, and they watch their parents deal with situations in a particularly anxious way. And whether or not they're aware of it, they take on some of their parents' qualities and traits. The same way if you have a parent who has a great sense of humor and who laughs a lot and jokes around a lot, you tend to be a kid who laughs a lot and jokes around a lot. If you have a parent who's excessively anxious, you tend to copy those patterns, whether you want to or not. So I don't think that they've identified an anxious gene, but it's sort of everything comes together to create an anxious child.
I talk a lot on this podcast and on my YouTube channel and on my website about modeling behavior. Yes. And I know how important that is as an adult. And it's one of the hardest things to do because in every situation, if we are anxious, like you say, or if we are taking on a cause, then we're showing our kids, you can do this too. So what I'm hearing from you is anxious parents lead to anxious kids. And when we have difficulties in life, we have to talk about how we get through that. We'll find a way through that.
Exactly. Kids will watch parents, whether you know that they're watching them or not. They watch parents carefully every day, all day long, how parents solve problems, how they interact with other people, how they cope with horrific events like a pandemic. Kids watch. You can tell your kids I want you to behave like this, this, and this. But if you're not modeling that behavior, they're not going to, absolutely not going to do that. So yeah, and it is a tremendous pressure on parents. But if you are rude to the checker at the grocery store, you better believe you can't turn around and tell your child to be polite to people, because what they're seeing is way more important than what you're telling them.
Yeah. Do you think that kids in general, those that you're working with too, and I know you work with from young all the way through high school, correct?
All the way through college,
All the way
actually.
through college. Okay. Do you find that they are excited to go back to school? And here we are getting ready for a new school year. Are they excited about it, or are they kind of like their parents that are like, I kind of like working from home. This is nice. I don't want to have to commute and see people and go back to what I did 9 to 5.
It's really interesting because obviously kids are different. But when we returned to school and we were back briefly in the spring, I had some kids tell me, oh my gosh, I never thought I would miss school. I always hated school. I never thought that I would miss coming to school, but I really did. And I'm so glad to be back. On the other hand, we had some kids who really embraced virtual learning, that found that that was really their, kind of jam, that they really liked it. A lot of my particularly anxious kids, when they came back, and it's interesting, actually were embracing wearing masks. I know, it's interesting.
Why is that?
They would tell me that wearing a mask, they could come to school in a mask and a cap and feel invisible. And that was absolutely a tremendous thing for them. They didn't have to engage. They almost felt as though their responsibilities in school were less, that the teachers didn't really see them. So they weren't really being called on as much. Any kind of feeling, oh, I need to engage with kids or I need to do this, was taken away. So a lot of pressure was taken away from them, and they were able to hide behind these masks.
From a psychological standpoint, is that pressure healthy? I mean, to me, that sounds like the kid who likes to be in the back of the classroom and never answer, and the teacher puts them up front so that they have to engage.
Exactly. Humans are social creatures. This social isolation that everyone has had has been detrimental to, I think, just about everybody. It's important to engage with people. It's important to put yourself out there. It's important to have human touch and have eye contact and see a smile from your teacher. I mean, all of those things are critical to, emotional development as humans. And when you take that all away, you're living life as less than human. You're living life in a mask and a cap, and that's not humanity. That's not living life as a human. Does that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yet I can relate. I can relate that, oh, it's kind of easier to just stay in. It's kind of easier. Like, it's almost like we've gotten used to this. So then venturing out for kids, like, I got to go back to those uncomfortable feelings, which we grow from,
Right, exactly.
especially at an age where they're learning to make friends and learning just how to navigate the school hallway. Right. I mean, it's healthy, and yet it's hard, but we know in those hard times that our kids are growing.
Right. And that emotional growth and emotional development is so important. That's why school is important. And even for those kids that are homeschooled, it's important for them to get out and engage in band or soccer or other activities so that they have that human interaction. It prepares us for the rest of our lives, unless you're planning on being a hermit living in a cave somewhere. I mean, we are going to have to deal with people our whole lives, and it's better to start off easy in school where there's structure and support before we get out into the real world. But we've got, unfortunately, this group of kids, especially, it's heartbreaking, our little ones that started kindergarten in masks, that are missing such an important human piece of learning. Can you imagine these little ones that never saw their teacher smile?
Well, and learning to read without seeing the mouth of the teacher forming those words.
Exactly.
And learning to spell and all of that. We know it's so important. So let's talk solutions.
Okay.
Let's talk about fear, because we all have it. It's a big part of everything that has happened, but we have to figure out how to get through it. What advice do you have for parents who have kids who are fearful going back to school?
Kids take their cues from parents. And if you have a child who's feeling fearful, you need to look in the mirror and say, how am I feeling? Am I feeling empowered? Am I teaching my child that, This is a temporary problem. We will get through it. We will, deal with things as they come along. Are you being a strong problem solving role model for your child? Or are you watching TV 24 hours a day and just inhaling all of this news, some of which varies from depending on what television station you're watching or your news source? It can vary dramatically. But so I would say to parents, look at yourselves, be a positive role model for problem solving, and also turn off the TV and limit the amount of information that you're getting, because particularly with younger children, they're not able to filter information like we are. And that can just kind of fan the flames of fear. Another thing that I would suggest is talking to your kids on a developmentally appropriate level. So there is no need to describe to a 4 or 5-year-old the details of the pandemic or the details of germs or why we're wearing masks or things. You use as short of sentences and as brief of an explanation as possible. Whether your child is returning to school in a mask or mask free, you say, this is what our school feels is what's best for us right now. And because we want to go to school, we're going to follow their directions. Very short and to the point. As kids get older, you can get more detailed. I encourage parents of high school kids to encourage their kids to use some critical thinking about the pandemic and say, why don't you do a little research into this? Why don't you look at a bunch of different sources and see what they're saying? So that sometimes information can calm your fears if you have appropriate information, and if you're looking at that information in a way that's, again, engaging in critical thinking and not just being blown away by excessive amounts of fear fanning statements.
Yeah, let them do the research and then go through it with them. You might even talk to them about where they got the information and is it a valid source, because now we have that to worry about as well.
Exactly.
As sad as that is. Okay. So I want to talk about anxiety a little bit more. And for a parent who has, we talked about fear, but when we're talking about anxiety in particular, how do you deal with kids who have anxiety? And if there are parents whose kids might not be seeing a professional, but they know that they are showing signs of anxiety, give me a few tips that we can work through with our kids at different levels in dealing with anxiety.
Okay, well, I think it's important that people start thinking about anxiety as they would think about having the flu. It is not, I am anxious. You don't say, I am flu. You say, I have the flu, or I have some anxiety. Anxiety can be a temporary thing that actually is one of the easiest things to treat if the child or adult is seen by a competent professional. It really is. Anxiety is a way of thinking about things that is detrimental. And you can actually change the way you're thinking to relieve your anxiety. And it can be taught in a professional's office. Parents need to be on the lookout for kids who continue to self-isolate because of their anxiety and who are refusing to do things that they used to enjoy doing because of anxiety. Those are, I think, the key indicators that you need to, and I always suggest, if you have a good relationship with your pediatrician, go talk to them first. It can feel very overwhelming to try to find a mental health professional to trust your child to. So sometimes it's good to talk to the pediatrician and say, what do you think about this? Do you think we need to go on and take another step and find a mental health professional? But definitely, if your child is not doing things that they used to be doing because of anxiety, if it's keeping them down, if they have a sad affect, sometimes it's difficult to tease apart anxiety with depression, talk to your pediatrician. There's also a lot of mental health professionals in school. It never ceases to amaze me that people don't realize that there's counselors, there's social workers, there's school psychologists that are there to support. And there is nothing wrong for a parent. Pick up the phone and call the school, talk to the school secretary and say, who's your mental health person? Can I talk with them? I've got some questions. That's our job. That's what we're there for, is to support. So make use of all of those resources.
Do you think that we are, in general, in our schools and in society, doing a good job of helping kids on a more general basis with this? Like, I try to work with my kids and others about, when you're feeling that way, take a step back, like general ways of, count to 5, take a deep breath. What's the worst thing that could happen? wake up with positive thoughts, not your social media. I mean, just general things we can be doing in this fear type society that we're living in.
I think that we can always do more. I think it's important for parents to partner with the schools in doing that. I think some schools do a great job of working with kids on teaching mindfulness, teaching good ways to calm down, teaching ways of managing anger, teaching ways of social problem solving. And again, because of social media and because of a lot of things, I think kids are lacking in their social problem solving because we do so many things on screen or through text that we have very little interpersonal communication sometimes. But some schools do a really good job of that. But I really think it's important for parents to partner with schools and to take the lead. And I will tell you, Natalie, I think that a lot of parents need to work on their listening skills. One of the things that the kids that I see in my private practice tell me is that my parents think they're listening, but they're not listening. They think that, asking me a question about school is listening, and it's really not. They're really not feeling heard by their parents. Parents tend to jump in and try to problem solve and solve problems. And that's not what kids are after. They're after somebody just loving and accepting them and listening to their problems with peers or with a teacher without jumping in and trying to solve the problem. And I think,
has that changed though? Is that always been the case?
It may have always been the case. I think it's a little worse now because parents are so fearful about what's going on in society that they lack confidence in their kids' ability to solve their own problems. So they try to solve them. And what that teaches the kid is, you're not capable of solving your problems. You need me to solve everything. And that sends their anxiety through the roof. We have a lot of very anxious kids who are feeling very helpless because whether parents are well-meaning, nobody,
of course,
trying to make their kids dependent, but well-meaning parents are actually sending messages to their kid that you're not capable of solving problems. So I need to be at school and I need to be solving problems with your friends and getting, and what kids are really looking for is just somebody to listen and to say, oh, that sounds awful, but I know you're going to do a good job figuring this out. I have confidence in you. You're going to be able to figure it out. And then as a parent, if you role model figuring things out, you'll be fine. But diving into every situation with your kid, I think, is part of the root of why anxiety is so epidemic right now.
Wow. That's so insightful, coming from someone who talks to hundreds and hundreds of kids dealing with these issues. Well, I've learned a lot of questions to ask kids and ways to model being confident going back and flexibility, knowing that things could change again. We might be wearing masks and then not wearing masks and back at home, but whatever the case, that we're going to get through it. Yeah. Okay, I have two questions that I like to ask people here at the end of the interview. I like to learn from people. So my first question for you, as a professional in so many years and working with young people successfully, what is your favorite tool for productivity?
Well, this isn't exactly profound, but I am a person that makes lists, and I always make 2 lists in the morning. Things that I absolutely have to get done and things that I would like to get done. And I separate the two because there's always things that I want to do that I never get to. But at the end of the day, if I get the things that I need to get done, I feel pretty good.
I like that. Mine tends to be this running list, and then I feel like I haven't accomplished anything if I don't get it done. So the must-haves and things you'd like to. Great advice. Okay, and then my second question is, when did you know your purpose, and are you still trying to figure that out? What is it?
I have wanted to be a psychologist ever since I was a little kid. My mom was a speech therapist, and she always had very special kids that she worked with. And she worked a lot with some special needs kids and would introduce us to them on occasion. And I loved watching the relationship that she had with some of these special needs kids, even when I was very little. And I thought, oh my gosh, to touch a child's life that has so many struggles and to make a difference. I just saw it in my mom's eyes that it meant so much to her. And so I started thinking, oh my gosh, I just think that would be happiness. That would be, something that I could do that would make me happy and would make other people happy.
So she modeled that for you.
Absolutely. Back to parent modeling. Yeah.
There you go. Where can people find you for more information or help, anything they might need?
Sure. Angela Wall, PhD.com. All my contact information is there. Plus, a lot of, some interesting things and tips for parents. And I try to put things in there in some different articles I've written. So yeah, don't hesitate and reach out if you need me.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it. And best of luck here moving into the new school year and to all those kiddos that you work with. You're doing some important work. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you for joining the Natalie Tisdall podcast. You can follow along on Instagram and at natalietisdall.com. Subscribe to the show to catch every new episode and leave a review so I can continue to bring you fresh content. See you next week.